Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. To continue with our lectures in information evaluation, last time we talked about porosity and the response of different logs with respect to different lithologies. Today we will go further and we will try to apply all the knowledge that we have gained so far in order to carry out a quick look evaluation or quick look formation evaluation. Before we start that, there are some basic information that we have to know. This is what you see here. It's a log header and there is some certain information that is necessary for us to know before carrying out the formation evaluation. So in general log header there are many information listed. So the company name, the well name, the name of the field, the country, the state, and the location of the well, the elevation. KB stand for Kelly bushing, and API number. So those are general. It might be, you might find more information, but those are the general information that you will find. Also that the logs, the list of the logs which are which have been done in logging job, sonic, micro imager, and magnetic resonance. One important information that we have to consider is the elevation and the Kelly bushing, because this is the reference depth that we will use when we are measuring any depth in the borehole. So any depth is measured in the borehole is measured with reference to the Kelly bushing. It's not to the surface of the earth itself. So this information has to be considered. Other type of information that we might find in the log header is the engineer, the witness who support, the date, the depth interval from which depth the logging job has been done. And as we know, as we said earlier, that logging jobs are very expensive, so we are not expecting that the logging is done for the entire borehole. It's only for certain intervals. So for example, we have here from 5,200 till 2,431. Also you will find information about the mud, the resistivity of the mud at certain temperature, resistivity of mud filtrate, resistivity of mud cake, and those information are very important for some calculations. When we need to calculate the water saturation, for example, you might need resistivity of mud or resistivity of mud filtrate. The bottom hole temperature is also very important for some certain type of corrections. Type of the fluids, is it fresh, is it oil based, water based? So because as we said, there is also and certain type of corrections that we have to do. The density, the bed size. If there is any remarks, it will be also listed in the remarks field. Now, for a quick look formation evaluation. Normally, when we get the logging sheet, the first thing we have to go for is the lithology track. So we need to identify our reservoir, and as we know that the reservoir, most of the time reservoir, or either if it's sand or carbonate, it will show a very low gamma ray response comparing to the shale interval. So the first thing we will consider is to identify the zones of low gamma ray which are considered as a reservoir rock. So after that, we look at the resistivity to see the interval where we have high resistivity, because as we know that hydrocarbon is more resistant than water. Water is less resistant, so we expecting that the intervals or the zones which contain hydrocarbon to show high resistivity values. So this is the second step. So if we have a low resistivity value, it's possibly a wet zone or a water bearing zone. If it's high resistivity, then we go for the porosity to check if it's low porosity or high porosity. If it's low porosity, then that means it's tight reservoir. And for tight reservoir, that means we will have a low porosity and permeability, and there are certain type of treatments that we do during production in order to enhance the porosity and permeability in tight reservoir. If it's high porosities, then this can be a zone of interest and a possible pay zone. Now we will go for quantitative analysis, porosity, lithology, and saturation computation. So those are advanced analysis after we carry out the quick look evaluation and identifying our possible pay zones. Something we have to put in mind also, the scales of each log, and we have talked a lot about how we read the logs, or how we read different type of logs based on the scale. One of the challenging logs that we have is the resistivity. So because the scale is not normal scale, it's logarithmic scale. So the first part of it is from 0.2 to 1, from 1 to 10, and then from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1000, and then this is our 2000. So this is how we read. So whenever the line lies, you can just directly figure out what is the value of the resistivity in that interval. The gamma ray is straightforward from 0 to 150. Borehole size from 8 to 18 inch. Units also is very important. We have to consider the units as well. The bulk density, that neutron porosity, we might find it in some places that instead of bulk density they will show density porosity, and in that case it will have the same scale as a neutron. It's either from minus 15 to 45 or whatever the scale being used. So we have to focus and consider the scales. Now let's have this example and try to apply whatever we have learned earlier in order to understand what do we have here. So we will go stage by stage. Now we will come, as we said, first thing we consider it the lithology, and in order to do that we will check the gamma ray response. The zone that show high gamma ray is mostly shale, and the zone which is show a low gamma ray is mostly sand. So in this example that we have, this zone is the shale zone. We have this interval of sand from here to here, and this also from here to here, this is sand. And then we have again shale zone, and then we start to have another sand in here. So in this scenario we have two zones of interest, this zone and this zone. Now, as we mentioned, we will go to the resistivity. As we see here, that the resistivity is shown low resistivity, which is it's either water or wet sand, but as we saw in that zone, this interval is shale, so it's mostly the water which is in the shale give us this type of resistivity. If we saw a high resistivity value, it can either be hydrocarbon or tight streams of low porosity. And the tight streams give us a high gamma ray, high resistivity values, because since it's tight, it will not contain pore spaces, and those pore spaces will not have any water on them. So in that case, we will not have any conductive fluid in those formations, and they will give us a high resistivity values. As we said, if the deep resistivity is low, it's either shale or wet sand. Now, in some cases, we might experience separation between the 2 or the 3 resistivity values that we have, the medium and the shallow, medium and deep. And in this case, that means either we have different fluids in the formation, and each fluid have different resistivity than the others. For example, if we have water and oil, so we expecting that the deep resistivity will give us high resistivity, while the medium and shallow resistivity will give us very low resistivity, because they are reading in the interval in which we have either the drilling fluid or the formation water, while the hydrocarbon will be deep in the reservoir away from the borehole, and where the deep resistivity will read the hydrocarbon resistivity, which will be very high. The other possibility is that the formation is permanent. The other interpretation is that the formation is permanent, and we talked about this before, and we discussed about the invasion. So the invasion is the movement of the drilling fluid into the formation, and we know that our drilling fluid that contain water, if it's water based, it will have low resistivity, and we will experience this separation if we have hydrocarbon in the formation. And if it's oil-based drilling fluid, so we will experience a high resistivity. So it depends on, that's why, as we said earlier, we have to carefully check in the header what type of drilling fluid has been used during the drilling, because it will affect how we will interpret our log response. After that, we identify that we have this zone and this zone. Both of them, they show different resistivity patterns from the normal one. So we will come to the porosity, and we can use the porosity log to identify, as we saw in the previous example, that we can use the neutron density crossover to differentiate different type of lithologies, and at the same time it can give us a clue about if there is a gas or water in the formation. So as we said earlier, if neutron to the left and density to the right, that means the interval is its shell. In here we have sand. So, and based on the separation, it can have oil or gas. If we have a very large separation, so that's mean it contains gas. If the separation is less than then it's oil. And if there are oversight, like we have some zones here in which the neutron density log are overlaying, so that means it's wet sand or oil sand. And how we will differentiate whether it's wet sand or oil sand, we will check for, of course, the resistivity response. It will give us a clue whether the fluid inside is it sand, is it oil or water. So to summarize, the separation will give us an indicator about either if it's gas or hydrocarbon, and if it's gas or not, and if they are overlaying, it's either water or oil, and in this case we will differentiate using the resistivity log. So this is to summarize the steps. If there is a sand, we'll check the gamma ray. If there is a potential hydrocarbon, we'll check the resistivity log. If it goes right, that means there might be hydrocarbon. Is it porous? And so is it the porosity greater than 0? Is it permeable? So the permeability, we can get an information about the permeability from either SP or the caliber. The SP will give us a negative deflection, while the caliber will see that the buildup of mud cake or mud filtrate in the borehole wall, that indicate that this zone is permeable. Is it gas? So as we said that we will identify that based on the separation between the neutron and density. So now let us put it all together. We identify those two zones, this zone and this zone, as zones which have low gamma rays, so they are our reservoirs. And now we come to the resistivity to check whether it contains hydrocarbon or not. We saw those two zones will have high resistivity. So now we come and check the porosity, and we found out that this zone we have this large separation, so it's a gas zone, while this zone in which the separation is less than the one in the top, so this will be our oil zone. And even the resistivity is not as high as this zone, so we identify two zones of interest. One is saturated with gas and the other is saturated with oil. And this is the water in which, as we said, the neutron and density will overlay each other beside the difference, because if we check this response and this response, they are more or less the same. But how we differentiate that this one is oil and this one is water is using the resistivity. So this zone is having higher resistivity, which indicates that it's oil, while this one is having a very low resistivity, and that indicates that it is water. So we can roughly estimate that our oil-water contact is somewhere in here, and our oil-gas contact is somewhere here. Another example is from Indonesia. Using the gamma ray, we identify those zones of interest, and then we go to the resistivity log, and we saw that we have this zone which is showing a very high resistivity value. So when we come to porosity, we can see clearly a very large separation, which indicates that this is a gas zone, while this zone is more or less a water bearing zone. Now Brunei, we have another example. We have this zone which is showing low gamma ray, so those are our reservoir rock, but this one is showing a very low gamma ray resistivity, which indicates that it's water zone, while this one is showing a high resistivity, so it's more promising and might contain hydrocarbon. And when we check the neutron density, we can see that this zone is having oil, while this zone is a water bearing zone. So by now, I guess from those three examples, I'm expecting that everyone can now carry out a quick look evaluation for any logs. You can practice on that if you went online, you search for any logs and try to carry out the interpretation yourself. This is a correlation between the log response, the neutron and density log response in and the neutron density crossover, how they are both related, both based on the response of the two logs. If we plot the values in the neutron density crossover, we can identify the lithology. So for example, in this zone, as it mentioned, is 20% water saturated limestone, and we have our scale here. This is N5 neutron porosity and density porosity. So those two are in porosity, while we have bulk density here, rho z. So in the neutron density crossover, we have the bulk density, which is represented in this scale, neutron porosity, and density porosity. So let us take 2 or 3 examples from here. From point 1 minus 0.1 to 3, so that's, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's mean this line is our 0 line. This is 0.1, this is 0.2, and this is 0.3. So since it's in this zone, it's lying on the 0.2, which is 20%. If we plot 20% neutron porosity and 20% density porosity, so this is our 20% density porosity, neutron porosity, and this is our 20% neutron porosity, it will lie directly here, and you'll find that it's 20% porous, and the formation of the lithology is limestone. Now let us take another example. For this one, for example, we have the density, as we said, this is the 20%, it's slightly less, it's almost around 15. So the density porosity is around 15, and we have the neutron, it's almost 3. So our neutron 30%, so 15, 30%, the intersection is here, so it's more or less, it's dolomite. The formation is dolomite. And so on. But we saw here that it's lying close to the dolomite, while if we check the gamma ray response, it shows very high gamma ray. So and we know that from the our previous lecture, we talked that as we saw here, this is the dolomite and this is the shell. Both of them, they have the same response, in which you will find the neutron to the right and density to the left, and the only way to differentiate between those two is the gamma ray. We will see a very high gamma ray with the shell, and a very low gamma ray with the dolomite. So it's not lying on the dolomite line, but somehow close to the dolomite. But if it's lying in the, if we plot this one, it will lie directly in the line. So this formation is dolomite. So you can try to go through it and check. You'll find that you can easily, through plotting this value here, you can identify different lithology: anhydride, polyhydrate, polyhalite, sulfur salts, and whatever. We will stop here, and we will finish in the, we will start the water saturation in the next lecture.